Hello, everyone. This is Pastor Chris. I'm coming to you live from Lexington Park Baptist Church. This is PC Studios. It is January the 22nd, 2025. How in the world are you doing? I hope you're blessed. I hope you're highly favored by God. I hope you're having a wonderful day on this cold day, man. It is cold outside. So, at least cold for Maryland, right? I know other places are colder, but anyway, used to live up in Northeast Ohio, and it was cold up there as well. So welcome to the program. Glad you're with me today. Sign in, let me know if there's any issues. Hopefully you can hear me, see me, all that good stuff. So listen, today is a hot topic. Do not watch it unless you want to hear truth. I'm going to give you a chance right now to get off. If you're visiting, watching it later on in playback, or if you're somebody who catches this later on, we're going to talk about pagan pulpits and houses of worship turned to houses of Satan. That's a tough topic. Is it judgmental? It is. I am making a judgment call on particular, just like in the Old Testament and New Testament, false teachers, false preachers, false churches, false denominations, false religions. At some point, you have to know what you believe and why. You have to be able to discern truth. You have to be able to separate those things. And if we're not careful, we mix truth in with falsehoods. And to me, that's even more dangerous. So to have clergy take a pagan pulpit, or to have church denominations totally sell out and look more like the world instead of the word, I take issue with that. Now, I am critical, but I don't want to be ultra critical or attack any individual person. The things that I will talk about today, a particular bishop and a particular national cathedral church in Washington, D.C., I am specifically targeting them at this moment, but not specifically the people. May God have mercy on them for what they've done. May God have mercy upon them and save their souls. I don't believe they're saved. I believe many of them are led astray. And if they are saved, then they're definitely misled, the elect that's deceived. And if they are not saved, they need to be saved because they're under Satan's dominion, demonic, I think, influences and ideologies and philosophies. There are such things as demonic ideologies and philosophies. Doesn't mean you're possessed by a demon, but you're following demonic thought, demonic ideas, demonic philosophies, and they influence your life. And then worst case scenario, some people that do this may be wolves in sheep's clothing. They know what they're doing. They know it's wrong, and they do it anyway. They speak a false narrative, a false gospel, and make a pagan pulpit and make a false religion and become a false teacher and become a house, not of worship, but a house of Satan, a house of division, a house of discord, a house of turmoil, a house of destruction. So that's a heavy, heavy opening. So let's get to it. What's caused me to get so caught up? You know, I got some freedom this week because I didn't preach Sunday, so I get freedom that I don't usually do. So again, this is controversial. If you don't want to watch it, if you can't stomach it, if you're going to disagree with me, if you're going to try to attack what I'm thinking, just tune out right now. You have the freedom to tune out. You're not going to offend me. But if you want to hear the truth, stick by and listen. But don't go watching it when I've warned you and then get upset. Okay? So can we agree to that? Now, what happened? So, yesterday at the National Cathedral was the National Day of Prayer, and I believe the tradition goes back to about 1933, if I read the history correct. Anyway, early 1900s. The president and vice president, duly elected, newly appointed, which was the day before this, they go traditionally to the National Cathedral for a National Day of Prayer. Beautiful, wonderful idea. Listen to what I'm saying. That is good. And I do believe that in this case, President Trump and Vice President Vance went there with all good intentions to have a focused service that would focus our nation on God. I would say this, a day before that into the inauguration. You had 2 opening prayers and 3 closing prayers. Now listen to what happened on that day. Everything honored God. There wasn't Islam, there wasn't Hindu, there wasn't Buddha. It was all about the God of the Scriptures. So what did you have? You had a priest and a pastor. You had the cardinal Nolan, known for America's cardinal or bishop, a great good man of God. I don't believe in Catholicism's doctrine, but he is on fire for the Lord. And so he got up and prayed, and then Franklin Graham prayed. Beautiful openings, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Then we close, man, awesome. So Detroit, he was on fire, but then you had a cardinal a priest at the end from D.C. pray, did a good job, but he shouldn't have been last. You should have let Pastor Lorenzo Sewell go last. He was on fire. He at a inauguration. It was beautiful. It was wonderful. So what happened then? Fast forward one day. We get to the National Cathedral, National Day of Prayer. It should be just pulling off of what was just said. You know, President Trump said, hey, we as a nation, we will no longer forget God. He made that statement in his inauguration speech. So we're here. That should be our whole focus, right? Our whole focus should be now on God. Well, what happened? Well, there was a bishop, the Bishop Archdiocese of D.C. for the Episcopalian faith. By the way, I do not consider the Episcopalian faith a true Christian faith anymore. They have brought in blasphemous abomination theology into their ranks. Let's not get into the differential stuff like appointing, first of all, a woman bishop. I don't agree with that. That defies headship. But that one you could overcome and say, okay, denominational differences. But when we get into wokeism, when we get into LGBTQ, when we get into DEI, and we get into all these other type of philosophies that have evaded the church, they're not scriptural. They may have bits of truth in them that get twisted. So the bishop spoke at the National Cathedral, and I want to read what she said, the one quote. So listen to what it says. In the name of our God, and I would put a little g because she's not talking about the God of my God. I ask you, speaking directly to the president, I ask you to have mercy upon people in our country who are scared. Hey, you know what? Okay. We need to have mercy. President Trump, have mercy upon people. Beautiful thing. Micah 6:8, right? We are to love God. We are to love mercy, do justice, and walk humbly with our God. All right, so, but then she says, these people that are scared are gay, lesbian, transgender children in Democratic and Republican and independent families, some who fear for their lives. Now, wait a minute. What in the world has President Trump or J.D. Vance, the vice president, said at anything that would let them think that their lives should be feared, that the government's going to come and attack them or kill them or any of that? None of that. So already she's off to a false dialogue, a false narrative. The people who pick these people, then the people, now look, she transitions from lesbian, gays, transgenders, these people who pick our crops, clean our office buildings, poultry farms, meat packing plants, and wash our dishes after we eat in restaurants, and work night shifts in hospitals. They may not be citizens or have proper documentation, but the vast majority of these immigrants are not criminals. They pay taxes. They're good neighbors. They are faithful members of the churches and mosques and synagogues and temples. End quote. So listen, there's some truth in there, right? There are good people that are illegal immigrants in our nation. There are good people that are lesbian and gay and trans. I'm not saying that they don't have some good qualities and good values, and that they don't love their family, that they don't want to work hard. They may not be patriotic. I don't know them all, right? I'm not saying they're all criminals. No. I think it's wrong when Trump does those things, right? Okay? So just going on record for that, when he makes it look like a lump. But that is not totally true. And first of all, did you know also, look how she isolated those illegal immigrants. She didn't call them that. But she made them look like they're just the people that work in, the poultry, the meat factories. They clean our houses. They clean our dishes. Is that all they're? I could get. Is that all they are connected with? Come on now. There are many immigrants in our nation. We're a nation of immigrants that have risen up and done great things. And so let's not put them down in just the crops and the dishes and the hotels and cleaning the hospitals. They do much more. They're great people. Many of them are. There are other criminals. Are there drugs? Yes, all that stuff. So there's not truth there. So anyway, her name is Marianne Budd, Budde. I don't want to ever say her name again, but that's who she is. She is the Episcopalian archdiocese in this area. I would not call this a religion. I would not call her a clergy. Yes, she's a clergy of a different kind. I think of the house of Satan. Boy, that's bold, isn't it? I don't mean to offend you. I really do not. I don't mean to offend her. She's not following God. Now, I want to pick this apart because there's truth in her statement. Are we to be merciful people? Everybody should say yes. Are we to have compassion on immigrants? Yes. Are we to bring the foreigner and the stranger in and those that have come with legitimate reason and bring them in? Yes. Are we to want wellness for all people and show dignity and humanity to people and love and compassion? Yes, 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 and yes. This does not, mercy and love and compassion does not mean we condone what is wrong. Does not mean that we compromise what we know to be a sovereign right. And it does not mean that we capitulate in our positions or that we embrace immorality or illegal activity. That's not mercy. Yeah, we can be merciful and try to be understanding and try to make a way and try to treat people with respect and honor. If you want to live that way, that's fine. But don't push your DEI and woke on me. And so what is woke and DEI? First of all, they have totally invaded the Episcopalian Church and our culture. And now you have President Trump standing opposed to that. So this woman feels that's unmerciful. He's also going to close the borders down to protect us, to bring security and sovereignty back. This bishop doesn't like that. Pagan pulpit. I'm not here. Listen, whenever the government gets into our religion or the government gets into God's business, I should speak on it. So I applaud her right by the First Amendment to speak. It was inappropriate what she did, though. And I want to say it was ungodly. Although it had some godly components, as I've already articulated. So what I would ask to you is this. Was it merciful, and by the way, we passed legislation on this, for Lincoln Riley, who was killed by an immigrant that should not have been here, brutally raped, brutally killed, down in Georgia. Was it merciful for that? Is that merciful? Who could argue that's merciful? Who could argue, yeah, let's just keep letting all these people through? You can't. You can't have it both ways. And so I know that. We've got to find a better way. I don't have the solution. That's why I'm not the politician. President Trump is, and so are senators and our House of Representatives. They've got to find a better way. But for her to do what she said, that's not godly. We need to remember what has happened. Bringing drugs fentanyl across our border, is that merciful to the people that have lost sons and daughters? To this addiction that has invaded our land, this radical invasion of drugs that's come across the border? Now you could blame the people that made a choice, but that's not always true either. Sometimes they lace stuff, even medications with it. So we've got to be careful about this. What about the mercy upon the families that have lost them? What about the mercy upon Lincoln Riley's family? What about the hundreds of others that have experienced that same thing? What about the mercy about communities now that have been invaded by all these people being transported to their areas of life and they've brought crime rate up? Not that they're all criminals, I'm not saying that, but those are true statements. What about having mercy? Listen, what about having mercy upon the children that have now been indoctrinated into this LGBTQ stuff? What about mercy? What about mercy upon those that have medically mutilated genitals, or drug therapy, hormone therapy on kids? What about mercy upon those? Wow, what about mercy upon those that have murdered children in the womb? What? Yeah. What about mercy upon people that have not gotten their fair shake because of DEI? Right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion that has not been merit-based, that has allowed Asian Americans, Hispanic Americans, African Americans, and other Americans of all type of backgrounds not to be looked at the content of their character or their merit. Wow. Now, I'm sounding strong, right? I don't think Jesus is for any of that. I think Jesus is like, listen, I want everybody to have access. I want to have everybody to have equal opportunity. I want everybody to know love. I want everybody to be able to live at peace and with grace with one another. I want to establish a better way of living. Follow my ways, and that is best for you. Whew, I'm fired up. I'm sorry. This is just craziness. It's a pagan pulpit, a house of Satan. Now, some would try to twist that back on me. I think legitimately, I've asked legitimate questions. You can't have it both ways. Let's have mercy on all these people and just let all of them in and let them live however they want to live and all that kind of stuff, right? And then you have the situations that I just described. That is immoral, that is unethical, and that is ungodly, and that's why I can say that pulpit is a pagan pulpit, and that house is a house of Satan, and that was not a national day of prayer, and that was a disgrace to the National Cathedral, and it was a disgrace to the President of the United States and the Vice President of the United States and to the entire nation. So I agree with President Trump. She owes the entire nation an apology, let alone him. So let me read a few things. Listen to what Franklin Graham said about Bishop Budd. The whole National Cathedral has been run for the last number of years by people I would call gay activists. And it is unfortunate that our National Cathedral has fallen into their hands. This is Franklin Graham. I was just surprised that the president even went down there. They should avoid that place at all costs because they don't represent the churches of America. Man, I agree. Franklin Graham is speaking truth. That church, that bishop, that way of philosophy does not represent most of the churches of America that still follow the Word of God and believe in Jesus Christ and believe that God's ways are best. No, that's not putting God first. That's putting Satan first. That is actually of the enemy's playbook, what she did. That's not of God. So I want you to hear that. Tony Perkins says the cause of America's decline was not what was sitting in the pew, but what was standing behind the pulpit that day. See, those of us sitting in the pew, President Trump and those others that were there, they're not the problem. What's being spewed from that pulpit that day, that's the problem. And anybody that advances that ideology, that doctrine, that philosophy, that way of life, that is not honoring God. Nor is that making America, forget the great, just making it a better place to live in. Safer place, a better place, a moral place. No. Now look, I feel for people that struggle with their gender identity, but praise God, Trump came out and said there's only two genders now in America, male and female. Man, that's common sense. We should have known that always, right? So look, we've got to get smarter. Listen, we've got to be better than this, right? So I want to say a few more things. Donald Trump is a flawed man. There's no doubt about that. He is imperfect. He's got a lot of issues. I don't like his speech. Personally, it bothers me a lot. Okay, I'm going to just be honest with you. But if he ever came to my church, I wouldn't flatter him, but I would want to bless him. I would want to speak truth to him. I would want to say, blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord, right? And I'm going to support you in anything you do that's going to promote that. I want you to honor your policies to honor God. Do I want mercy in his policies? Absolutely. Do I want him to have compassion on people? Absolutely. Do we need to find a way of resolving some of these serious issues that have been created by these philosophies that are demonic? DEI, woke, open borders, all these kind of stuff, denying sovereignty, right? These are serious issues that don't have quick answers. But what we are doing or what has been done in the ideology that was promoted is not of God. We've got to find a better way. I'm not saying that his way is the best way. I have no idea. But let's change this and get going in the right direction. So, a pagan pulpit promoted blasphemy in the National Cathedral over our nation. But the day before, in the inauguration, God was honored through the prayers of those five men that I told you, 2 priests, 2 pastors, and 1 rabbi. That's what we need to remember. We need to respect Christianity and its origins of Christianity and the biblical things that we should teach. We need to be careful to discern truth. Listen, as you listen to our speech, some of us might be prone to say, man, she's right. She's only right in this. We do need to have mercy. But her whole application was wrong, as I've showed you with the questions I asked. What about the mercy for the girl that was murdered? What about the mercy for all those invaded by our drugs? What about the mercy for communities that have totally been transformed and crime has risen? What about the mercy of saying, I want to protect my children? What about the mercy that protects my children from the indoctrination of LGBTQ and DEI? What about the mercy upon the unborn? What about the mercy for all of us? You see, we can't twist it in such a way. And again, I don't have the answers. I'm not the politician, I'm the pastor. But my job is not to let paganism and worldliness into the pulpit. My job is to make sure that when politics or government gets into my business, I speak on it. And that's why I'm speaking today. It's important. Now, Trump didn't do anything on that. She did. But when I have a fellow clergy do that, that is blasphemous. That is not the house of God. That is not a real teacher of God or preacher. It's false teaching. It's false religion. It's a false church. And we need to be able to acknowledge the pagan pulpit and the house of Satan that was established that day, opposing what happened the day before, where God was honored. So listen, I want you to think about these things. And again, if you watch this and you know you were going to disagree with me, shame on you. You shouldn't have done it. You shouldn't have done it. But what you have heard today is truth. I don't think there's anything that I've said that was spoken that was out of line. I am not favoring President Trump, but I will pray for those that are pointing over me, and I will pray for him, just like I did President Biden. I encourage all of us to pray. I will pray for his protection and guidance, just like I did for President Biden. Now, I did pray in opposition to many of President Biden's positions. I will pray for the movement of many positions of President Trump because I agree with him and on many of his policies. But I will pray that his policies will have dignity and respect and compassion and mercy, which sometimes is lacking, and that we find a better way to solve this and unify our nation, not divide us. I do pray that I realize that some people do believe that their world just got radically changed because of a philosophy and ideology change in the White House that will influence our nation. And I would say, thank God for that. I don't think anybody's life is in jeopardy. No one is promoting hatred. No one is promoting discrimination. I will oppose those things, and so should you. We need to make sure that we honor God. And I would say, going back to Micah chapter 6, that we love mercy, do justice, and walk humbly with our God. Hey, that's all I've got for you today. That's a lot of stuff, but man, I'm passionate about this. I'll look for an article I'm writing in the Illuminator on this topic. So anyway, know that God loves you, and so do I. Let's go have a better day, and let's not let these divisions pull us down. Let's get on our knees and pray for our nation. And even though the National Cathedral may have failed us, and this bishop may have failed us, our God will never fail us. And as quoting the president, the 47th president of the United States, we will no longer forget our God with a capital G. God bless you. Love you. So does God. We'll see you here tomorrow. Take care.